Today, Mahindra is not just a company, it is a multi-sector business conglomerate. In fact, its growth mirrors India's growth. Time and again, it has served the nation's requirements. Whether it is off-road vehicles or tractors, rural finance, real estate or leisure, it has helped create a better life for its citizens. The M&M story holds great fascination. No Indian company's history is as interwoven with that of the nation as much as Mahindra's. They were both born at the same time. In fact, the history of Mahindra parallels the history of the nation. Let's go back in time to understand how the company's destiny was shaped. In 1942, when Gandhi was giving his call to the British to quit India, and patriotism was at its peak, there was another set of individuals preparing for the economic freedom of the nation. They were the brothers Mahindra, JC and KC, who were to leave a lasting impression on Indian industry. JC studied engineering at VJTI. KC, on the other hand, went to Cambridge, as did a number of prominent leaders like Nehru, who later became a close friend. Both the brothers started their career in Indian industry. JC joined Tata Steel. In fact, the doyen of Tata Steel, Rusi Modi, reported to him. KC joined Martin Byrne, an engineering company. JC rose to become the first steel controller of India. During the war, it was he who conceived the innovative equalization of funds, which even today is considered a seminal contribution to the steel industry. Meanwhile, KC went on to head the Coal Commission. His Coal Commission report is the Bible of the industry, even today. It was 1945. India was in the throes of the freedom struggle. The Mahindra brothers, inspired by their vision of modern India, set out on a journey to prove that Indians were second to none. On the 2nd of October 1945, Gandhi's birthday, the first step of this journey was taken. Mahindra and Muhammad was founded. It was a result of the friendship between the brothers and Ghulam Muhammad. This was a reflection of their secularism. Their purpose of business and their values was depicted in their first ad in the Times of India in 1945.
Years ago, we made a tryst with destiny.
On the 15th of August, 1947, India attained her freedom. But freedom came at a price. The price of partition. Ghulam Muhammad migrated to Pakistan, and M&M continued as Mahindra and Mahindra. It was KC's friendship with Barney Roos, inventor of the Jeep, which resulted in the Jeep coming to India. As the number of Pakka roads were few, the brothers rightly thought that the Jeep would suit the rough Indian roads. So in 1947, the first batch of 75 Jeeps in CKD condition arrived. Assembly commenced on the 3rd of June 1949 in Mazgaon. On the 1st of November 1954, in technical collaboration with Willis Overland, the manufacture of Jeeps started in India. This was the symbol of the nation's industrialization, and with it, the seeds of technical collaboration were sown. The doctrine of the brothers was simple: profitable business centered around the nation's needs. The euphoria over independence had evaporated by the late 1950s. Then came the pressing need to feed our growing population, which brought agriculture to the forefront. Thus the seeds of the Green Revolution were sown. In 1962, calamity struck. China invaded India. M&M was on the forefront of the battlefield. Its Jeeps were used extensively by the armed forces. Soon after, Pandit Nehru passed away. But the Green Revolution did not die. Mahindra understood the importance of this national need. In 1963, the company got a license to manufacture 3,500 tractors. In 1965, the first batch of B275 tractors was ready. Today, it is the country's largest manufacturer of tractors, having put 1 million units on the road and also exporting them worldwide. The 60s saw the death of K.C. Mahindra. The mantle of leadership fell on Keshav Mahindra. The success of the company continued. On March 29, 1965, he drove the 70,035 Jeep off the Mazgon assembly line. In 1967, M&M declared its first bonus issue of 1:5. But by then, money-making had become a sin.
When we were saddled with the Monopolies Act, we were saddled with controls and regulations. You couldn't raise capital without government consent. So in fact, all decision-making processes were in government hands. And it was very difficult days because you couldn't start a business, you couldn't shut a business without government approval. We had projects, we put in a number of projects to make cars. We had a wonderful association with singers. We had another 3 or 4 other projects, all got turned down.
Despite the restrictive economic environment, the company came through with flying colors. The great oil crisis occurred in the early 70s. Oil became expensive and the sale of Jeeps fell drastically. To seek opportunity in adversity and overcome it with innovation has been a mantra of Mahindra since the early days. How the company came out of this crisis under Keshav's leadership is what legends are made of.
We always tell the story that M&M and the Mahindra culture responds in crisis. In crisis, everything shakes up to see that we achieve our end. At that point, Mr. Sadisai had come to auto, and facing this crisis, he actually, with a team of engineers, worked on a tractor diesel engine, which is a high-power, low-speed engine, to be converted into a high-power, high-speed engine for a Jeep application.
They modified the tractor diesel engine for the Jeep, thus manufacturing the first diesel Jeep and thus overcoming a great crisis. Mahindra could have had an easier run and probably prospered more, but the essence of Mahindra has been never to use unfair means.
We took a philosophical view and said, well, turn it down. Others had perhaps more means of inducement to get the projects through, which we did not want to follow. There comes the question again of governance of ethics, which is ingrained in the whole organization.
And for this, Keshav was honored.
This was a citation for Sir Jahangir Gandhi Medal for Industrial Peace, which our chairman got in 1994.
India's protectionism took it to near economic disaster in late 1990. Once again, a new leader and a turnaround for the nation. The winds of liberalization saw a new generation coming into the company. Anand Mahindra had the same dreams as his predecessors to forge ahead, which he did through total transformation.
When I joined the company, it was a time of momentous change for the country as well. Came up with my own jerry-built philosophy, if you will, and I used a mnemonic to characterize that, and I called it the EASY framework, E-S-E-E. And I articulated for myself that the task of leadership lay in the sequence of those letters, that you essentially had to first envision a future. The second task that had to be done was to structure the company. The next job then was to enable. The final E refers to energizing, because once you have envisioned a future, once you have structured the architecture of a company, and once you have populated that and resourced it, both with human and financial capital, then the leader's job is not to intrude upon the everyday tasks of people that you have delegated authority to, but to energize, to be a source of energizing for people.
In the 90s, in line with the nation's needs, the Mahindra Group entered the service sector. They are today in IT, rural finance, real estate, and leisure. And with India becoming a global power, Mahindra knew that it would have to compete globally.
But in a sense, this was a second war of independence in India. It was not a war of political independence, it was a war of economic independence. And the battle here was once again to prove that we could not be conquered by multinationals, that simply because the world had opened up, that India had opened up to the world rather, we were not going to suddenly bend over and say, you're the victors.
Mahindra's success is evident. Today the company is present in every continent except Antarctica. Mahindra has acquired an 80% stake in Jiangling, China, making it the 4th largest tractor company in the world. As one looks to the future, one can be sure that Mahindra will be at the forefront of India's progress.
There is this theory that 400 million people form the bottom of the pyramid. And therefore, business must mold itself to meet those needs. I would very much like M&M to be the leaders in this kind of a movement.
I believe the country is poised for phenomenal growth, the kind of growth that we could only have dreamed of earlier, the kind of growth that will make us pinch ourselves 10 years later and say, is this real or not? Could we ever have imagined that India would claw its way out of the quagmire of poverty, reach the levels of affluence it has, where our landscape has improved, our environment has improved? All these things, I think, are imminent now. I believe Mahindra, therefore, as it has in its history, will participate and will be somebody that will be a shareholder in India's future. That as India takes its place in the global order of nations, Mahindra will take its place in the global order of the finest corporations in the world.
The Mahindra journey will continue in line with the progress of the nation. For both, the sky is the limit.